Welcome to the Westside Barbell podcast. I'm here today with Jeremy Loper, and we're going to answer questions. Today's topic, I believe, is strength and conditioning for combat athletes.
Yeah, we have a lot of them too, man. And you are the professional, so you'll be answering for
Rumored.
us. All right, man. So first question. In-season wrestling training, are there any specifics that you can give when it comes to high school athletes, even collegiate athletes in training?
High school is so demanding between school, training, practices, tournaments, travel. Off-season, to start with, that is real easy because they're in one place. We can do a lot of things. In seasons where a lot of kids lose their conditioning or lose their strength. So what we'll make sure is at least to get them in the gym twice a week. If we can have them more, great, but twice a week is the goal. We'll do one for max effort and one for dynamic effort. Now, all this can adjust depending on a competition. If they went to a tournament and they're smoked, we'll leave out the max effort. We'll do two dynamic efforts, one for upper, one for lower. If they feel good, we'll try do at least one max a week, whether it's upper or lower, and then a full dynamic, including upper and lower movements. And we try to keep that throughout in season. And there's so many variables. Depends on the caliber of wrestlers they are, what they need. The one thing we do avoid is conditioning because they're just getting like crushed between tournaments and practices. But the goal is to maintain and build upon what they have. It's never to go backwards, and we're always trying to improve.
All right, fair enough. What about ab movement for MMA? This is from Sammy Rowland 15 on Instagram.
We got a bunch of favorites. Hanging leg raises, tried and true. We like to get on a 45-degree hyper, 45-degree extension, back extension machine, and where the pads are right at the top of your hamstrings, and you have to keep yourself as straight as possible with your head back and hold that position. We'll do a static hold there for about a minute. Then we'll throw in some med balls, some rotation, and we'll do the front, the back, and the side. So you'll do 1 minute front, 1 minute right side, 1 minute left side, and then reverse it around. That's one of our tried and true methods, and it's a good tester for us that we'll know if your psoas is real tight, you'll start shaking real quick. If you don't know,
yes.
you know. Two, it's good for partner exercises. You'll have people who will be trying to pommel with you, trying to hit you in the stomach. It's just a good all-around ab exercise, and it carries over to every combat sport.
It really lets you know what your place in ab strength is.
Oh,
and where you stand in the world for real.
Well, and two, you have this conundrum of if we're training together and you're on there, I know it's your turn next. So do I go real hard on you? I remember when Matt was in there, I can't remember who was working with him, but they took it easy. And then Matt's turn was next, and I'm like, oh, you just screwed up. Because like Matt just didn't relent. He just went to the town, and they're like, what the heck? I'm like, dude, that's your fault.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Talking about UFC legend Matt Brown, of course. All right, so this one from Bry Please on Instagram. If they are following a condensed conjugate program, what day should they do in extra day 3? Much love.
I have no reference of what their condensed conjugate program is, but if they're going to do 3 days a week, we do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is max effort lower, Wednesday is max effort upper, and Friday is the funnest day of them all. It's that full dynamic effort day of both lower and upper. To me, out of the week, that's one of the most important days because you're getting stronger. Your conditioning is a byproduct of the training density, and like that's where a lot of the fun competitions happen. But that's the way we do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. Here's this may be my favorite question of all time, not just today. Does Dana White, UFC president, know about Westside Barbell?
I have no idea. I hope so. I do know the Fertitas back in the day were big into lifting heavy weights, and we worked with a gent called Terry, can't think of his last name, but he used to work for UFC HQ back in the day in Vegas. So personally, I don't know. It'd be great if he did.
Dude, Lorenzo got jacked for a second.
Yeah, so did Dana.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. But there's been no direct correspondence.
Okay, so there you go. That was for George Passino. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. And that question came from Instagram. You guys can hit us up on all of our social media platforms, send in questions each week. All right, the next one is this. What type of strengths do you address? Okay, what types of strengths should I address and at what time during MMA training?
It's a very broad question. Address what you need to address. I guess the simplest way to answer it. Everyone is different. Everyone's got different strengths. Everyone's got different weaknesses. And the assessment is how we figure all this out. Game planning comes into reference too, especially for higher level. We'll talk with the head coaches and see what their game plan is for a specific fighter. From an athletic perspective, I'll know what they're lacking. So sometimes max effort is not the most important. They'll reach a level of strength that, okay, we're going to hold that and focus on maybe muscle endurance. You might need some static or quasi-isometric strength, especially if you're going to go with a wrestler or a grappler, you're like, oh, but if you're going with a powerhouse, there's some stuff that we might, not saying that it would help, but doesn't hurt, we might emphasize and stuff with the traps, neck to be able to absorb more punishment.
Yeah, the neck for sure. Like Dorian Price was someone that came through the doors here at Westside that was so into just strengthening the neck. And the belief was, and I believe Louis was the one who told me this, you know, it really prevents knockouts. Oh, you know, the stronger your neck, and now you hear it everywhere. You know, everybody kind of passes that along. But, you know, I first heard that from Louis.
Dorian, a good video to watch is that double knockout, and he came back up from it. So I would.
How many are those in the world? I mean, like he owns one of them, but I mean, like that is maybe the most classic double knock. YouTube that right now, guys. Dorian Price double knockout.
And I like to believe his neck training and just being tough as all heck is what brought him through. Yeah, the neck. We have that 4-way neck machine there by. That we have that's done a tremendous job. But yeah, it all depends on, I know it's the worst answer to give, but I'm not going to say something holds true to everybody, but we try to work on what you need. We talk with game plans, but just try to assess yourself honestly and just improving them weaknesses.
All right, from Subhuman 805 on Instagram, how do I increase my explosiveness?
Through dynamic effort work is really important. Through exercises that are based on a specific time. So explosive strength is the steepest increase in strength in the quickest time. So you're trying to, box jumps is a good way. Jumps in general, plyometrics is a great way to do it. Med ball throws. The catalyst for all strength development is max effort strength. So if you have a low amount of maximum effort, you're not going to get the most potential out of your explosive strength development. If you're high in that area, then just refining through accessory work. But plyometrics in general, both upper and lower, are a great way to get that out of you.
All right, so we're doing questions based around combat sports this week. And here's a great one. Why are workouts for MMA fighters so damn long?
Say that again?
Why are workouts for MMA fighters so damn long? And this one came from the Conjugate Club.
They shouldn't be so damn long. Our workouts in the gym, we try to get everything done in an hour, 15 minutes tops. A lot of the time, I've noticed that if shit talking is a high amount, that takes over and that eats into the time. Sure. So by giving parameters that you have to get it done, that usually helps hurry things along. Our Fridays, which is the double dynamic in one day, in one session, should I say, we get a lot done, and in an hour, 15 minutes, they're done. We don't include abs and hypers, because that's like breathing here. They're just a given part, but all the workouts, the squat, dead, deadlifts and benching, all those movements are done. We have 3 to 4, maybe 6 accessory movements done in an hour, 15 minutes tops. So it means your training is not dense enough or you're lacking the structure for it.
Now, would you say like the size of the group matters?
Of course.
Yeah. Like what's the perfect size
4.
in your opinion? 4.
4 tops. 3 really is phenomenal, but 4 because it gives you a little bit of rest. And what we like 4 is if on a monolift, you have one person running the monolift. Yeah. One person is squatting, one person is adjusting the boxes, and then another guy is adjusting the height. So that 4 rotation crushes it. And what we'll do is we'll superset deadlifts with squats. So as soon as you squat, you run out the monolift, you go do your deadlift, and you come back into rotation. So by the time that person is set up ready to go, you have your deadlifts done and you're back in. But 4 to me is the best. And if it's anything more than 4, we'll try to break them up into groups of 3 and 2 or 3 and 3. That's the thing. And people screw that up too. Don't have everyone do the same thing. You can start at opposite ends and cross over that way.
All right, this one comes from Instagram. What's your opinion on weighted carries?
I'd imagine that's like farmers walks and stuff like that.
The wheelbarrow.
Hugely important in our muscle endurance and accessory work selection. Wheelbarrows are huge for endurance, grip strength, everything. Like a heavy wheelbarrow, like kicks your ass. Weighted yokes is huge. We'll walk around. We'll do stuff with that. We've been really hammering the transformer bar right now because you can change the angles on that. It's been really effective for weighted carries. They're smart, like they're huge and smart to have in rotation, but we rotate them in, rotate them out, try to keep them for about 3 weeks. And then we've got certain ones that are testers, like the wheelbarrow with 315 around 400 meters. That's a tester for us. Farmers walks, we'll either walk in a trap bar or actual farmers walks for distance. That's a grip strength measure for us. There's stuff there that we have, but rotate them in, try to keep them in for at least 3 weeks, usually no longer than 6 to 8 weeks. But yeah, they're very important.
And like, so more than like a vest, like would you wear chainmail?
Ooh, that'd be.
I mean, I know knights were super strong, man. You know, come on.
That'd be a tad bit restrictive, but weighted vest. We have had people put on weighted vest, put chains around themselves with Indian clubs and a sled, walk around both buildings. There was a jiu-jitsu guy here. I can't think of his name, but Louis had him loaded up with 200 pounds of chain, a 100-pound weight vest, 2 Indian clubs and a sled. And every lap he would take off like a part of the chain. To where he got down to just the sled and the Indian clubs. I mean, that guy was a tank, but yeah, there's
beast.
Yeah.
All right, so this one comes from the real Jordan Vega. How many lifting days a week and what body parts splits per lifting day? Like how would you split up the body parts in upper or lower in the totals of those?
Gotcha. So depending on what level you're at, we'll just assume the guys in the gym, when they're not in fight camp, which fight camp to us is that 10 to 8 week mark, they come in 3 times a week.
Okay.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is that we stick to the foundational Westside Conjugate method split in that we got a max effort lower on Monday, a max effort upper on Wednesday, and then Friday is the combined dynamic effort. When they're in camp, we will take out one of those days, so it's 2 days a week, and then the max effort, depending on how close they are to the fight, will stay in there. It'll rotate between upper and lower. If they're getting close to a fight, we'll just take it out and we'll put in some different exercises. We might make that a dynamic effort upper and then a dynamic effort lower. But that 3-day split, we don't specifically focus on body parts.
Okay.
Our hierarchy is based off what you need.
Gotcha.
So if the most important thing is to put on mass somewhere, we'll figure that out in the workout. But we create a hierarchy of needs based on what we need to improve upon.
All right. I love this question. I wish it was my actual question, but it comes from one of our followers on Instagram. How would you train different from boxers to mixed martial artists? Any difference in days or exercises chosen? And I love this question for you because you have so much experience in training both.
Yep. Sometimes it provides a little bit of a headache in that we can do the foundational stuff together, but the demands and the recovery times are different, especially for a pro boxer. The amount of rounds you do is way different to MMA.
Sure.
The active time is different. The rest times are similar. They're the same. So what we discovered is we would have our boxers one side, MMA guys the other. They could do the main movements. So that's similar in terms of the 3-day split. We all do the max effort together because good old shit talking us going back and forth. Then the accessories is usually based on everyone's individual nature, what they need. But the MMA guys are somewhat similar. The boxing guys, instead of doing 5 minutes on a ATP walks back and forth and doing pommeling, boxers do it for 3 minutes. Now, the MMA guys used to talk shit, but sometimes those boxers are on there for 15 rounds of 3 minutes. Like that may be.
So that's where, so that's the difference,
like that
right?
may be the whole accessory day, depending on what we need to do, but it just crosses over. So foundationally, it's the same in terms of the selection. The rest times change, And if you're doing kind of any circuits or intervals, like that will change. But the great thing, the way the system is, it's all based off a hierarchy of what you need. So if you're a boxer and you need more GPP, well, we're going to hone that in for boxing more than MMA. But if you need to build up strength or you've got a weak muscle group, it's virtually the same process as an MMA guy. The problem comes in is when you have the two groups come together and you have an hour and 15 minutes or an hour to get it all done. So you try to separate them out because it just, between the chirping back and forth and some of the subtleties of difference of training, that it just becomes a mess.
All right, so this is a great question. Going back to the carry subject, this comes from the Moses Mania. I train at a BJJ team here in New Jersey, and the biggest question for you is, what is your favorite carry?
I like the safety squat bar walk. I'd imagine that's what you're talking about, the carry. That are like good old farmer's walks are. What I like about the farmer's walks we do is you start off with high expectations. And you're like, got this. And our building is roughly 400 meters. You get to the first corner, you're like, bro, this is too light, crushing it. You get around, and then halfway through, you're like, what am I doing? Like, you just start questioning everything. Totally. Especially if you're dragging the sled with it.
Yeah.
To me, I like farmers, or the wheelbarrow. I don't have one particular one. I love the sled in general. But I think the safety squat bar is the one where we start seeing some really good returns on controlling your breath, because you have to engage your upper back too to keep that posture. And after a while, it's just forcing everything down. So I'd say that'd be one of my favorites.
All right, I'm a Westside certified trainer, and I follow the Conjugate system for my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu team. What do you think if I were to add sprints to that? And what are your thoughts on sprints?
Yep. Huge. They're important to get into rotation. If we had the time and the ability to do it, we would. We used to go to one of the parks and we do uphill sprints. We wouldn't structure within our strength and conditioning workouts. It's a separate workout. So these guys, when they finish here, they'll have it in their arsenal of workouts they're going to do in the week. But I think they're very important. They're great for replacing oxygen debt. So you have that big sprint up, you rest, you come back down. I think they're very important, and go for it, put them in.
All right, Montana Barbell 2020 has this question. What lifts have the greatest correspondence to punching power?
Sumo deadlifts, huge. Bell squat or ATP walking. That one has a huge, because it develops the hips, the glutes.
It's, I mean, one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself, especially when it comes to combat training. It really is.
There's that, rear delt exercises. Everything is a whole chain of events. But messing around, there's a few guys here who deadlift like Burley Hawk. Dude, there's something to that deadlift, that sumo deadlift. Like that, or a snatch grip deadlift's another one. If you can build them up, like you're a bad mofo in generating power. But that ATP, the walks and the variations, that's the one that we can significantly see a carryover. After 3 weeks, there's definitely a carryover to your punching power.
Yeah.
But it's only as effective as what you're doing outside of the gym. So you can be a stud in the gym here, but you're not honing your skills. Like, you can have all this power, but if you're not using it and getting it out, it's useless. So it's what you're doing from here, and then you do your skill training, and then you carry that over into to punching. So if you're not doing the two of them together, it's worthless.
All right. So this question comes from the John Davis. I don't know if it's the lead singer of Korn or not. Speed squats for time or always reps when training combat athletes?
That's a good question. Rarely do we do it for time. Now, we do have a time limit, but we usually allocate 15 to 20 minutes to get speed squats done. But normally, depending on the group size, it's the 5x5s or the 12x2s.
Okay.
And they're usually well done before that 15 to 20 minute mark. There is another type of squats we do. We do squats for time, for conditioning. That's with a safety squat bar, and you do it for 5 minutes straight. That one is a mofo. But usually we just keep it to the system. But it is good to have that time cutoff just in case they're just taking too long.
All right, this next question is from the Elevation_Academy on, this one came on Instagram, I believe. What are key performance indicators for a stand-up fighter and someone who prefers, versus somebody who prefers the ground, a grappler?
Key performance indicators between them both. Two very different sports. So KPIs for boxing or for a stand-up guy, a lot of it will be their hips, or where their hips and glutes are, their obliques, their general abdominals, where that's at, their conditioning. So we do stuff like we have that 45-degree extension. We'll monitor them per minute, how well they do. We'll test the med ball throw. We'll test their sumo deadlift. We'll test their box jump. So those are some KPIs for a grappler. There's some like strange stuff we do. Sometimes do a figure of 8 in the ATP where you hook the strap in and we'll see how strong your hips are and how long they can take the weight for.
Yeah.
That's one KPI. Sumo deadlift is another one. It's great too for hand grip. We'll do some stuff with towels too to see what you can pull with a sled and stuff like that. But again, two very different sports and two different KPIs we have. But the one universal one is the joint assessment. So no matter what your sport is, we test your shoulder joint, your hip joints, because they're ball and sockets. They're very important. Usually they have impingements. We'll test what your internal and external capacities are. We'll look at your ligament and tendons to see if they're developed. We'll focus, that's a universal KPI, because that dictates how well you're going to function and everything else.
Would a Thai fighter fall somewhere in between, or would you have them follow more of a regimen of the MMA fighter?
It'd be in between. I mean, Thai fighting, beautiful art, close to my heart. But they'd tend towards MMA guys more, that one, just because the way they train. But the same universal KPIs, I guess.
All right. So speaking of which, what are your favorite training techniques for Muay Thai? And this comes from Pyra in the Sky.
There's a few. When I first got here, Louis and myself kind of went down a Muay Thai rabbit hole. At that time, he was huge, and I can't think of the correct terminology, but we had 2 sticks that we would just beat.
Like rattan fighting sticks?
Yeah.
The Eskrima sticks?
That, and but in Lou fashion, he had ones that were iron bars with a thin layer of foam around it. So when he went to hit my shin, I can remember going boom, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't want to be a puss here, but I felt that. So we're just like going through all the stuff they did, but we did a lot of stuff with the lat pull down. We got, basically it was a cylinder, but looked like a ball onto a chain, and we get it in a clinch. And we do clinch work. That's how we did our abs. I think you guys did that too when you were in there training. That was a big one. Obviously, like we love the deadlifts of all variations, some squats, some upper body movements, like we do floor press bench, football bar bench. Those things are good carryover, a lot of rows. But with Muay Thai, we did a lot of stuff with knees on the ATP.
Sure.
Where a lot of stuff with bands, where we would tie it around our knee and we'd do band extensions into a punch pad. So we did a lot, like for a good year and a half, 2 years, because that's when Dorning came in too.
Yeah, sure.
And,
fresh out of Thailand.
Yeah, which was ironic. Like the two of us never met each other. We came here and we're a year apart of where we trained out in Thailand. Because he ended up going to
See, a lot of people don't know that about you.
Yeah, well, it's a very, I was a very, very low level at it. But we were a year apart, and then we had another guy, Cody Stevens, who we never met but through Westside, and he was right in the middle. So we all missed each other, but we all went to the same place in Thailand, which was
that's
pretty
crazy.
unique. But yeah, so that's how we started experimenting. But there's a bunch of different exercises that we never released to the public, but we at one stage, the knees started becoming devastating with some of the stuff we're doing.
All right, so this one comes from Coach_Chris_Guns on Instagram. How much do you add on or take away from the intensity / volume on the last month or 2 days leading up to the fight?
It's a good question. 8 weeks out, a lot of stuff is cut out. So we refined it down a good bit. Learned a lot from Matt and Travis Clark. Those 2 guys really helped me hone in with the new guys, like with AJ, Miles, TJ, Chad, when he was here in Megan, we got all that from them. So 2 days, it goes from 4 days to 2 days, or 3 days to 2 days, depending on who you are. So that 8 weeks, we're really focusing on just keeping your joints healthy, keeping the CNS activated. So we'll do max efforts, but they're modified. They're, I won't say hard, but they're easier max efforts. So it might be a really high pin pull. It might be an ATP squat instead of a regular back squat.
Sure.
Bench press might be a high pin press, just stuff to stimulate the central nervous system. We'll keep that in for about 2 or 3 weeks. So then on week 4, we'll go to dynamic effort. On week 3, we have our circa max kind of phase, to where that's the most intense workout they'll do. It will be mostly dynamic effort based, but it's so dense, and there's a lot of ATP walks in there. And we have certain levels you have to reach to know where your conditioning is at. But usually everything changes in fight camp. So those 8 weeks out is when we change everything, and it varies on the person. But 4 weeks out, the max effort has stopped, and we're focused on just honing in. A big thing I will tell people is, if you're waiting to 8 weeks out to do your work, you're screwed. All the hard work is done. Fight camp is literally, for some, it gets in the way of what they're doing, because we can do a lot more. But fight camp, really, it's all honed in. It's all about the fight. A lot of it is about weight. A lot of it is about skill, like honing up the skill. So you've done all the hard work, so you can acquire more knowledge, because you don't get fatigued as much. You're stronger. You can hold different positions. But if you're waiting for those 8 weeks or those 4 weeks to get better, you've already lost. Those 8 weeks should be all dedicated about being ready for that given fight.
All right, so all the folk style wrestlers out there, listen up. This question comes from Luke Deflett, I think is how you say the name. What, in your opinion, are the best exercises for heavyweight folk style wrestlers?
Sleds.
Sleds.
So look, anything to do with wrestling, if you're not doing sleds, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, or jiu-jitsu and judo, sleds in general are phenomenal exercise. But for those sports, you can do upper and lower. So you can make them grueling. You can do them forward, backwards, sidewards. You can go into different angles. To me, it's just so critical to have them in. You can do a max endurance instead of a max effort lift. Sled drag for upper and lower. It carries over to wrestlers. I've seen wrestlers do things that just blew my mind on the comprehension of how tough they are. We had this one kid come in here, and we told him to drag sleds around the building. And little steps, boom, boom. I'm like, he's not going to get 10 yards. But keeps on going, and half an hour later, I'm like, just doesn't stop. And then that's when I realized you have to call it, because they just don't quit. But we saw the biggest carryover for all grappling and wrestling from sleds.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this week.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, man. Awesome questions. You guys keep them coming. All the social media platforms on the Conjugate Club, and they can email in too, right?
Sure. Yep. You can email us in at training at westside-barbell.com. We have Instagram. We got Westside Barbell. We got Twitter. We got Facebook. We're very easy to find. Appreciate the time, Loper. Thank you.
Yeah, we're out there. Come find us.